In this section, all statements and inferences regarding either specific products or groups or classes of products are simply the opinions of Old Aesop Glim. In making these statements, he does not pretend to any inside knowledge. It is hoped that no manufacturer will feel that his product, whether identified by name or solely by type, or any of the merits of his wares, are in any way minimized. Our discussion is strictly limited to the problems of the copywriter. How shall the copywriter give individuality to a product when the product is not visibly different from similar products made by other firms? Broadly speaking, we can say that bread is bread, salt is salt, sugar is sugar, tobacco is tobacco, and a bottled orange drink is a bottled orange drink. In other words, in some fields, several competitive products may appear to be a lot alike. They have become virtually staples or commodities. When this happens, we might suggest that all the bread makers get together and advertise good reasons why the public should eat more bread. We would expect that if the total consumption of bread were increased, the sales of each individual maker would be proportionately increased. However, we shall assume that it is our job to create brand demand for one specific brand of bread, or salt, or sugar, or tobacco, or bottled orange drink, and that our personal income depends upon doing so successfully. At the least, we must give our product individuality in a highly competitive field. If possible, we must also turn our commodity into a specialty. There may be 50 formulas or devices for achieving our goal. Advertising is still a young business. You have every chance to make history by designing new advertising formulas. There is no implication that the following 10 formulas or devices constitute the only possible methods of creating individuality and brand demand for a product which may otherwise be lacking in obvious distinction. However, they offer a convenient checklist and a starting point for your thinking. Change the product, add a new sales feature. This is so obvious that it is frequently overlooked. Nevertheless, when the copywriter's analysis of the fact-finding reveals that the product has no outstanding advantages over its competition, it is definitely within the copywriter's province to ask whether the product can be changed in any way. For example, which was the first gasoline to contain lead? There was obviously a time when, by this change of product, one gasoline had an exclusive sales advantage over the rest of the field. Something new has been added to old gold cigarettes. Latakia. Create a fictitious character. Identify the product by the character. Before your time, there was Sunny Jim. Today, we still have Johnny Walker and Aunt Jemima, very much alive. Always remember that what we are seeking is both product identification and product individualization. Diagram the product. Ballantine's beer was diagrammed by the 3 rings symbolizing purity, body, and flavor. The blending of a whiskey was dramatized by naming it 4 Roses. It is important to note that in this formula, and as a matter of fact throughout our present discussion, we are seeking something much broader, something more useful to the copywriter, than simply trademark value per se. Diagramming the product is in essence symbolizing its qualities. Whatever our device, it must give us copy material. Stage an ingredient, quality, or process. Preempt something common to the field and make it yours. If one manufacturer started talking about the whiteness of his salt, it is unlikely that another salt manufacturer would want to be put in the position of saying, "Our salt is white too." The pause that refreshes suggests the qualities and flavor of a drink of Coca-Cola. That phrase is now Coca-Cola property. Rename an ingredient, quality, or process. This is distinctly different from 4. To obtain the qualities necessary for long wear in an automobile tire, rubber is compounded with sulfur and various other ingredients. Within broad limits, the proportions of sulfur and other ingredients to the rubber must always be somewhat similar. At the same time, it is logical to assume that no 2 chemists would hit identically the same proportions. If the name of your chemist is Gundelfinger, you are certainly entitled to speak of your tires as made by the Gundelfinger formula. If they are good tires, it is obvious that the Gundelfinger formula had a great deal to do with making them good. At the risk of being more repetitious than usual, Old Aesop Glim stresses the fact that all such devices are aimed at finding copy material which will help to build individuality, and therefore brand demand, for one particular product in a highly competitive field, in which there may not be visible differences among several products of approximately equal merit and price. None of these devices, particularly 4 or 5, is intended to suggest dishonest practices. None is intended as a method of misleading or cheating the consumer. In every case, we start with the assumption that our bread, salt, sugar, tobacco, automobile tire, or bottled orange beverage is a thoroughly meritorious product, built to deliver all that the consumer expects from it, well worth the price asked for it. As copywriters, it is our problem to make the consumer try our brand, simultaneously to give the consumer the means of identifying, remembering, and reordering after his first purchase has proved fully satisfactory. Personalize the product. This differs fundamentally from 2, where Aunt Jemima identifies a product and provides associated copy material in terms of good cooking, hospitality, etc. The old Dutch cleanser girl chases dirt. She's always at it. The product, its function, and qualities are 100% embodied in the character through which it has been personalized. Stage the package. Make the package a sales feature, somehow contributing to either the qualities or the usability of the product. For example, the salt package with a pouring spout, non-refillable bottles which guarantee that you are getting the one and only original, beer in cans protected from the light, milk in cartons which need not be returned. An important aside, don't make the package or container so valuable in itself that the consumer begins to wonder how much he or she is paying for the container as against the ingredients. In most cases, the container should wear out or disappear when the ingredients are exhausted. A shelf full of empty containers too good to throw away may build a very unpleasant backfire. Stage the dealer. Sometimes, service with a smile becomes as important a sales asset as either the product or its package. A reputation for clean comfort rooms may create demand for a particular brand of gasoline. The white uniform and the tinkling bell of the good humor man certainly create desirable associations with the product. Testimonials. As previously discussed, there is no substitute for a satisfied customer. If someone like your prospect, or someone your prospect admires, is already a satisfied customer for your product and willing to say so, the prospect is naturally predisposed to try the same brand. Always remember that testimonials may also be in the form of new performance records or of tests by independent, unbiased authorities, universities, testing laboratories, etc. Allegory and simile. Don't confuse this with 2, 3, or 6. Spud Cigarettes has had some stunning advertisements in which the menthol sensation was beautifully portrayed by cool water from the old oaken bucket, or by the freshness of a field of daisies. Somewhat similar, but with a different objective, is the continued use of a lovely gardenia in the advertisements of PM whiskey. Query: would you place the PM slogan, "If it isn't PM, it isn't an evening," in any of the 10 classifications above? In presenting this checklist, there is no implication that some such device is automatically a must. Here, as in our previous discussions of copy policy construction, Old Aesop Glim believes that you are frequently safe in ignoring your competition, in not always trying to be intensely competitive or entirely new in your copy theme. If your product does what it is supposed to do, if its price is right, if your copy policy is soundly constructed, if the virtues of your wares are stated positively, even though not competitively, you will always win a fair share of the market. The use of premiums may suggest itself as another method of creating individuality and brand demand. Obviously, if you are the only sugar manufacturer who gives a penny whistle with every pound of sugar, then you are the only sugar manufacturer who gives a penny whistle with every pound of sugar. In the ever-humble opinion of Old Aesop Glim, the use of free premiums constitutes the lowest form of commercial activity. This is an opinion with which some people disagree. If your product is worth a dime, it is worth a dime. If you offer your product for 10 cents and throw in a penny whistle, the word may get around that your product is worth only 9 cents. This does not mean that Old Aesop Glim has any quarrel with an introductory offer of 2 for the price of 1, or 1 at a special introductory price. Sampling, whether the manufacturer bears the whole cost or induces the purchaser to share the cost, is the very essence of selling. Dwayne Jones Company is one of the largest users of premiums, for its clients of any advertising agency in New York. Its clients sell millions of self-liquidating premiums a year via radio programs, newspapers, and magazines. This agency agrees that premiums offered with the product, at no extra cost, tend to depreciate the basic worth of the product in the consumer's mind. However, self-liquidating premiums are paid for separately by the consumer. The only requirement being that the box top of the product be sent in with the cash price the consumer pays for the premium. In this way, the price of the product advertised is in no way depreciated, but the consumer gets a valuable premium at a fraction of its usual cost, as an inducement to sample the product. The advertiser's sampling cost is thus kept low. At the same time, goodwill is built up for his products because people remember the bargain they got in the premium. By way of an assignment, try to spot 3 examples of each of the 10 formulas described in this section in current magazine, newspaper, or radio advertising. Then, in addition, assume that you are to write copy for a new bottled orange drink, which is not appreciably better or worse than other bottled orange drinks already on the market at the same price. Figure out how you would apply each of the 10 formulas to the copy policy for the new bottled orange drink. It is unlikely that any advertisement, prepared with honest intent and reasonable intelligence, could fail to do some good. If it were little more than name display, it would still make its contribution to the advertiser's general reputation. However, between the least effective and the most effective advertisements which could be prepared on the same assignment, the difference in pulling power can be great. The significance of keying for results is: plant something in your advertisement which will help you to learn whether you are getting results. If you are writing institutional copy, then you are trying to make the company better understood in terms of some particular facet or objective. What have you put into the copy to create this understanding? How are you going to know that the understanding is created? If this is product copy, the objective is to sell merchandise. What have you put into the copy that will foster the sale of merchandise? How are you going to know whether your copy did foster the sale of merchandise? The advertiser ought to want some indication as to what he's getting for his expenditure. The copywriter ought to want to know how good a copywriter he is. Both should be seeking to learn how to tell the story ever more effectively. When you see an advertisement that does not directly ask for a reply of some kind, you are entitled to wonder whether the copywriter is afraid to find out how good a copywriter he is. You have reached adulthood when you want to know and when you seek to know. The direct result of your desire to know will be experimentation, ceaseless experimentation, to increase the effectiveness of each succeeding advertisement on the same subject. Maybe your headline and copy are excellent, but your illustration is the wrong kind. Maybe your headline lacks the arresting power to get your copy read. Maybe the headline and illustration are excellent, but the copy doesn't live up to them. In any of a dozen ways, you may be in the right church, but in the wrong pew. You can't find out unless you have a yardstick by which to measure the effectiveness of your advertisements. If you want to know, you must plant something in each advertisement which will tell you whether you got results. On this score, the mail-order copywriters are the luckiest of all. With a coupon which is an order blank, for goods, services, or a catalog, with no salesmen or dealers to create any other sales, the mail-order copywriters soon know what they're doing, advertisement by advertisement. If you use a coupon, be sure it is large enough to write in. Ask for the name, address, city, and state. There are several Springfields in this country. Make your coupon self-sufficient, meaning print the full reply address and the full request right in the coupon. Some people cut them out and don't mail them in immediately. Put some identification into the coupon that will tell you which advertisement and which publication produced this reply. Don't trifle with your street address as a means of identification without the blessing of your local postmaster. If your coupon is in any way unique, get your postmaster's approval before you start using it. Coupons can sometimes get you dividends and useful information about your prospects and customers. For instance, you can put in a line which gives them a chance to tell you their occupation. An advertiser of building materials asked coupon repliers to state whether they were living in their own home, a rented home, or an apartment. Of those who replied, 83% filled in this information, which was exceedingly helpful to the salesman who followed up these leads. If you don't choose to use a coupon, you can still key your advertisement. Put into the copy itself an invitation to some kind of action. Write for a sample, send for a booklet, go to a dealer and do so and so. Whatever action you ask for must be of a kind you can check. What you are seeking first is to find out whether advertisement A or advertisement B pulled more results. Then you'll go to work to figure out why. Then, how to make advertisement C pull still more results. This endeavor is an honorable end in itself. There are many times when your proposition does not require a coupon or a direct reply. This should not in any way lessen your desire to know whether your copy is effective. It should in no way lessen your desire to find out how to make the next advertisement more effective. So the answer is, key at least some of the advertisements in some of the publications. Key them artificially if necessary. Key them solely because you want to know. There's almost always some device to be found which will enable you to get some artificial results, no matter what the primary objective of the advertising. When you have decided to key for results and to start ceaseless experimentation toward greater copy efficiency, there are two major precepts to keep in mind. The first is, test only one thing at a time. If you are suspicious of your illustrations, for example, run the same headline and copy with two different kinds of illustrations. In comparable publications and under comparable conditions of season, weather, etc., make as many factors as possible the same, while you test just one factor. Always be on the alert for factors you hadn't foreseen, which could influence the results, for better or worse. Be sure you don't take credit for increased sales which were actually due to increased salesmen's activities, or to new and better window displays. The second precept is, pedigree your copy. As surely as you can breed good traits and characteristics in thoroughbred horses, you can pedigree your copy. Spot the good strains and the weak ones in illustration technique, layout style, headline subject and style, copy subject and construction. Throw out the weak ones. Intermarry the strong ones. Habakkuk in the Old Testament was not talking about billboards as we know them today, but his admonition is obviously applicable. The messages we deliver via billboards are messages which must be delivered with speed to our prospects when they are in motion. Probably 14 words are the most we can hope to put across, and many of the strongest posters carry only 4 to 6 words. If we are to make full use of such mediums, we must know that we can surely do our job in not more than 14 words. If it is our job to remind our customers to keep using our wares, we can frequently do so in a very few words. And if only a brief message is needed to turn prospects into customers, we can hope to deliver that message to people when they are in motion. But, a great deal of the time, our message is longer, must be more informative. We place it in a business paper, a magazine, a newspaper. Our copy runs to 50 words, or several hundred. Our informative advertisement must reach out from the page, arrest the attention of those who are prospects for our wares, induce them to read our message from start to finish. An informative advertisement works that way because it is constructed to work that way. An informative advertisement educates our prospects, catches their attention at some common meeting ground, and leads them step by step to the point at which they know almost as much as we do about the virtues of our wares. That is why most of this book is devoted to questions of how to build advertisements, which will educate prospects. If you demand a dictum from Old Aesop Glim, here it is. Unless you know beyond all doubt that you can sell your wares in 14 words or less, stick to the formulas of writing educational copy. Construct each advertisement with the determination to get it read from start to finish. Now, there is a belief in some quarters that an educational advertisement can be so constructed as to deliver also at least part of its message to people on the run. It is, at the least, a good theory, and one to keep in mind at all times. We won't label it more than a theory because we need only to leaf through any current publication to see how many experienced advertisers do not observe this preachment. Maybe the answer is write at 2 levels, if by so doing you do not too greatly reduce the number of prospects who can be induced to read your whole message. No matter how great our confidence in our ability to construct seductive advertisements, we must be sufficiently honest with ourselves to know that we can't be 100% successful in our endeavor to stop and hold all who are our prospects. Some will just plain be in too much of a hurry. So the question is, what impression can we make if our prospects merely look at the illustration, read the headline, and the display of our product name or company name? Here is an advertisement in which the illustration is a painting of a naval battle. The headline is Nerve Systems for Battle Wagons. The signature is Western Electric. These three elements tell me that Western Electric makes communications systems for naval vessels. If that is all I have time for, I have still learned, or been reminded of, a fact Western Electric wants me to know. Here's another. The boy who used to play with trains, illustrated, is running an engine in Iran, illustrated. The signature is General Electric. Here I am forced to read the copy in order to find out what GE Engineering has contributed to the situation suggested by the headline. Here's an advertisement with a small picture of a tank and a large picture of a very young lady who has dropped her ice cream cone in the sand. The headline is, Sand Can Spoil a Lot of Things. The signature is General Motors. Here's an illustration showing Marines carrying oil drums ashore from landing craft. The headline is, The Third Wave at Bougainville. The signature is Tidewater Associated. I would rate the General Motors advertisement as being similar in construction to the General Electric, and the Tidewater as being similar to the Western Electric. Here's an illustration of a flying fortress and its crew. The headline is, You'll Go Places on This Team. The signature consists primarily of the insignia of the Army Air Forces. Certainly, if the advertisement said nothing more than this, it would be a powerful poster. Actually, this advertisement contains almost 700 words of copy, and they are worth reading. A Goodyear advertisement shows a stream of tires coming out of the factory. The headline reads, We're working on our 5th million. As a quick message on all synthetic tires, that is pretty powerful. But this advertisement also includes more than 300 words of copy. Remington DuPont obviously wants me to read the whole advertisement. The headline is, The Metal That Made the Sergeant Homesick. The nature of your message will frequently help you to determine whether you can safely write at 2 levels, or whether you must bet everything on trying to force a reading of the whole message. There will undoubtedly be occasions when you do not display even your product name or company name. It is so important that your message get read, that you force your prospect to read all your copy before he even finds out who you are. Perhaps there are 3 alternatives. At one extreme, you hide your signature and bet everything on your arresting power and your sequence to win a reading of all the copy. The middle step permits the name display to tell quickly who is speaking, but your headline and illustration are aimed 100% at forcing a reading of the copy. In the all-out effort to write at 2 levels, your illustration, headline, and signature deliver a partial message to those who do not stop for further reading. But your copy tells a great deal more to those who do stop. Perhaps we can reach our decision through a fairly simple question. Can we expect more results by shouting 10 or 15 words at a large audience, or by inducing 5% of the audience to come outside and listen to our whole story? Once upon a time, a new breakfast cereal was to be tested. Food experts had pronounced it good to eat. Packaging experts had pronounced it correctly packaged. Advertising experts had prepared what they considered to be the correct advertising campaign. In one medium-sized city, the grocers were stocked with the new cereal, and the advertising started. The product was an instant success. As far as anyone could judge, the advertising was making people try the product, and the product was making the public repeat their purchases. It was decided to repeat the test in another city of almost equal size, some 200 miles distant. The same preliminary steps were carried out, the same advertising campaign was launched. In the second city, the product was a complete flop. The question before the house is, how could an advertising campaign, which was a success in the first town, fail in the second town? The answer is the product had been changed. An overzealous chemist had changed the formula for the sake of extra economy. The danger is that the advertising campaign might have been condemned as a failure. In another case, a perfect advertising campaign was prepared and released. And when we say perfect, we mean that this campaign was written by experienced writers, basing their writing upon a careful analysis of all pertinent facts. But, to all appearances, the campaign might just as well not have been run. No effect was apparent. Finally, it was discovered that no one had bothered to tell the salesman about the new advertising campaign. The salesmen were using a totally different set of sales arguments from those used in the advertising. The salesmen were using the old arguments with the dealers. The dealers were using the old arguments with their customers. The old arguments had pretty well outlived their usefulness. For the purposes of this discussion, we speak of a campaign as failing, when the apparent returns are appreciably less than they should be. This might be all the way from total failure, as described above, to partial failure. Partial failure would be when returns are only half as great, or half as low in cost, as they might have been. Obviously, when you pay $1 to create a sale which could have been created for 50 cents, the campaign is far from a total success. Advertising will always fail when the product is not right. Advertising will frequently fail when it is not coordinated with all the other sales and sales promotional activities, such as packaging, window and counter displays, what the dealer says, what the salesmen say. As a copywriter, and if only in self-defense, it will pay you to know that all the elements of selling and sales promotion are fully coordinated with the advertising you prepare. Advertising sometimes fails because it is operating against unknown, hostile factors. In other words, the fact-finding which preceded the writing of the copy may have been inadequate. The hostile factors might be as obvious as the climate and weather. They might lie in sectional tastes and preferences. They might lie in errors of vocabulary, not talking the language of your prospects. They might lie in some quite subtle fact. For instance, if you want to show a picture of a warm house in a snowy country, be sure the roof is completely covered with snow. Melted snow on a roof means that heat is escaping through the roof and melting the snow. Therefore, the house is either cold or wasting fuel. Your failure to know this kind of fact will discredit you with many of your prospects. Over-advertising can be a source of campaign failures. A desire to out-advertise your competitors is not automatically a good desire. You may find that you are advertising to a wider audience than your salesman can cover, or your factory supply. In tons of publicity, you may have beaten your competitors. On the profit and loss sheet, you may have defeated yourself. There is such a thing as too much advertising, just as surely as there is an overdose of medicine or ice cream sodas. John Smith is a pillar of the church. He is also one of the best golf players in his club. You won't sell him a new golf club while he is in church. And the moral, as far as this diatribe is concerned, is that some campaigns fail because the timing is wrong, and because the mediums used are wrong. Different advertising mediums evoke different moods. You will have trouble selling in Monday's newspaper's products normally bought on Friday. You will have trouble selling women's products in men's publications, and vice versa. Campaigns sometimes fail because the advertisements are either too large or too small. How big an advertisement should be will always be determined in large part by the length of story necessary to put a prospect into the frame of mind you seek to put him into. Beyond this, there will always be room for experiment, and only by experiment will you learn the whole truth. At one time, one of the leading automobile companies found that small-space newspaper advertisements were the most economical and efficient for selling new cars. Large-space advertisements were needed to sell used cars. If you have couponed advertising, you may discover that a full-page advertisement pulls 150 coupons. A half-page pulls 100 coupons. A quarter page pulls 40 coupons. For maximum returns per dollar spent in advertising, obviously the half-page unit is the most economical when the figures come out that way. Still another dimension. Sometimes you can't show your merchandise adequately in a half-page advertisement. It takes a full page to do justice to the picture of your product. Campaigns often fail because the copywriter is not using the right appeal. Don't use sex when you need economy. Don't use economy when you need sex. The hottest iron on the market would have little appeal to a woman who spends most of her time ironing Celanese, rayons, and silks. Plausibility is no substitute for knowledge. Ignorance is no excuse for the copywriter. Inspiration is totally unreliable. Facts, 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 and more facts are what the copywriter needs. Once upon a time, Leonardo's favorite picture framer came bouncing into the studio and proclaimed, "I've just finished the most beautiful frame yet. Just perfect for your new Madonna. Actually, your painting's a bit too large for my frame, but you can cut off her hands, can't you?" And that's how Leonardo happened to use the picture framer as ballast in his next airplane experiment. Possibly the silliest words a copywriter hears are, "Your copy doesn't fit the layout. You'll have to cut out about 40 words." When you hear such a remark, dear copywriter, the password is Procrustes. Procrustes was an extremely hospitable gent who lived by the side of a thoroughfare. He owned a fabulous bed, in which he invited all and sundry to pass the night. He guaranteed the bed would fit the sleeper, as no bed had ever before fitted that particular sleeper. And he always made good on his promise. A short guest was stretched to fit. A tall guest was cropped. When you were invited to cut or pad your copy, shout, Procrustes. Because, of course, the layout should always be built to fit, to stage, to deliver the copy. As surely as you don't cut or stretch the picture to fit the frame, as surely as you don't stretch or crop the guest to fit the bed, so you should not cut or pad the copy to fit the layout. The layout should be made to fit the copy after the copy is written. And if by chance the layout gets made first and doesn't fit the copy, then it is the layout that needs alteration. Before we proceed with certain ground rules as to how to protect the copy from the art director, let us make sure of one all-important rule of self-discipline. Before the copywriter is entitled to fight for his piece of copy, he must be able to say and know what he's saying. This copy is now exactly the right length. It says everything that needs to be said, in as few words as I dare use. It contains no unnecessary facts or statements. With my story told in this length, I am satisfied to rest my case with the reader. If any of this were omitted, I'd be afraid that I wouldn't get my story across. If I added anything, I would run the risk of either boring the reader or destroying the sequence of my story. In short, the copywriter is not entitled to fight for his copy solely on the basis that he likes it the way it is. But when he feels certain that his copy is the right length, then he should refuse to cut or pad it, simply to make it fit the layout. Strangely enough, this need not produce an impasse or deadlock, nor leave you caught on the horns of a dilemma. Old Aesop Glim has some suggestions. Most important, obviously, is to make it standard practice to get your copy written before the layout is started. Then don't give the layout man merely the headline. Give him a typewritten copy of the complete text. On this basis, he knows just what his layout must accommodate. Most art directors like to work this way. You will undoubtedly be invited to cut your copy more often than to pad it. Almost any Procrustes can figure out how to stretch the copy without changing a word, by using a larger typeface, by putting more space between the lines. Also within my observation, art directors hate to shrink elements, but don't mind making them larger or rearranging them. And a little extra white space often improves the appearance of an advertisement. But if the layout has been made first, and if your boss has fallen in love with that layout and shouts that your copy is too long, consider these possibilities. Set the first paragraph in the size of type you would like to use, then set the rest of the text in a smaller size. The smaller the type, of course, the greater the number of words in the same number of square inches. If your copy has sound construction, sound sequence, the reader will go with you from the larger type to the smaller. But you must have faith in the soundness of your sequence. Set alternate paragraphs in different sizes of type, such as 12-point for the first and third paragraphs, 10-point for the second and fourth, etc. Tests have shown that the intelligent use of italics in a piece of copy stimulates or supports the reader's interest. It is old Aesop Glim's opinion, although I have no test to prove it, that each change in type size operates somewhat similarly. If copy suddenly changes from large to small type, or from small type to large, the reader is apt to believe that the new size represents a new degree of emphasis, and to continue reading in order to find out why you made this emphasis. Sometimes one or two paragraphs of your copy can be lifted out of the main text and set up, in smaller type, inside a rule border or box. Once again, you have been able to use a smaller size of type. You have given special emphasis to the paragraphs thus boxed. Along about this time, after you have recommended any of these methods of getting more words into the same space, someone may shout that the advertisement is getting spotty, doesn't look as smooth or pretty as it should, to which the copywriter's answer is, don't forget it's the layout that's wrong. How about making a new layout? Even then, of course, you may not win. Someone whose authority exceeds your own may make an irresistible suggestion that the copy be cut. to which Old Aesop Glim offers his final injunction: never cut or pad your copy, rewrite it. If you take a piece of copy which has construction and unity and start cutting or padding, your patchwork will always show. Start all over again, reconstruct, and then rewrite the copy to the prescribed length. By way of an assignment, take the one piece of your copy you most admire. Reconstruct it in 25% fewer words. And since this is the end of the book, here's your final assignment from Old Aesop Glim. Always construct your copy via saturation with facts and sequence. Write it to be easier to read than to skip. Be sure you're right, then fight for your copy against every Procrustes you encounter. Thank you for watching until the end. If you want to go deep down into the rabbit hole of marketing and persuasion, click the link in the description where you will find many fundamental books about copywriting, psychology, and persuasion. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. See you in the next one.